Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry that we have to be here like this. How do you explain the unimaginable? How do you accept the unacceptable? You don't. You can't. You find something unfathomable, and in a way to simply surrender to it. And why? Because you have no other choice. You have to move on. Unimaginable and unacceptable as it may feel, we all have to grab hold and reluctantly turn a page. The thing is, John wasn't easy to move on from. He was perfectly present wherever he was. A friend, and if you really knew him, he was more than that. He cared about the people in his life. He listened to you. He was happy when you were happy. He was sad when you were sad. What he wouldn't want us to be at this moment is sad. He would want us to celebrate what he gave to us and what we remember about him, the wonderful times, the incredibly wonderful times. John was an atomic ball of energy. And coincidentally, on the day he was born, Monday, December 2nd, 1957, the Shipping Port Atomic Power Station near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the world's first full-scale nuclear power plant, reached criticality, which allowed the pressurized water reactor delivering its first electricity to the Pittsburgh area. His electricity was delivered to everyone who was ever in his presence. In 1957, both John, the Frisbee, and Tang were first introduced to the world. I can just see him as a little boy flinging his Frisbee and slurping down Tang with a Swanson TV dinner as he watched the Bugs Bunny show. More important, and in the life of John, two events would be forever tied into his life also occurred in 1957. Oliver Hardy passed away at the age of 65, the same age John would reach. And the final season of The Adventures of Superman was being seen on television. He devoted much of his life to spreading the joy and magic of Stan Laurel and Babe Hardy and The Adventures of Superman, and did them both successfully. Because of his passions, uncountable amounts of people were able to develop and nurture their own love for these visual delights. It was out of his love for Stan and Babe and Superman that we were all able to share in his deepest adorations. His attention to his friends was unwavering. As a fellow motion picture collector, he was well aware of a search for a particular feature film. It is a highly coveted motion picture from 1932 that many classic film collectors have long sought out, but very few have ever been able to find. From the late 1950s on, this film and hundreds of others were seen in rotation on television, which was the source of all of these celluloid treasures. In one film collection that John acquired, he spotted something. It contained the very film that I was unsuccessful in locating. If he were to auction it off, he certainly could have garnered a small fortune for himself. But instead, he called and notified me that he found an original print of it. And not just an original print, but one that had never been run on television. Somehow this absolute pristine print never made the rounds of the TV stations that shipped prints from city to city, mishandled and run through projectors that were hardly cleaned properly, adding lines, dirt, hole-punched signal cues and splices, which left permanent scars and marks on the films. But this print was tucked away in its box, which was never opened. No imperfections, mishandling, or flaws of any kind. It was stored in a cool, dry place as if it was just printed yesterday. Instead of offering it to the highest bidder, and he certainly could have used the money, he said, be on the lookout for a special package from the post office. And when it arrived, I opened it up, threaded it through the projector, and screened the Paramount All-Star feature, If I Had a Million, that features Gary Cooper, W.C. Fields, George Raft, Charlie Ruggles, and so many wonderful character actors. And it looked just as John said it would look. I photographed a few frame grabs, posted them online, credited my dear pal for his generosity, and shortly after was bombarded by other film collectors who offered me generous sums of money if I would sell it to them. I didn't. I've screened it 3 times. The last time was the week after John left us. During that screening, I wasn't concentrating on the story much. I was thinking of my friend. His keen wit, knowledge, and gentle good nature never failed him. His ear for mimicry was incredible. Often we would have contests in doing impersonations of famous people, and also people we knew personally. And we would perform them for our friends, and sometimes when nobody was around, we would just entertain ourselves. His performing prowess never failed him. Put John on the stage, and he was in his element. He was a great audience, too. His laugh was infectious. No charity chuckles. His laughs were genuine and earned. In the end, it was only his physical infirmities that failed him. Our birthdays were 4 days apart. He on the 2nd, me on the 6th. And we always invited each other to come celebrate our annual trip around the sun, but never could, owing to the distance and the fact that we always had our unique plans for that weekend. In the over 30 years I knew him, and called him friend and brother, he provided endless hours of conversation, joy, and laughs. Only once did he break my heart, and that was on November 3rd. He broke a lot of hearts that day. On that first evening, after his departure, I went outside, and I looked up at the sky. It was a clear night. There were so many stars in the dark blue, I literally got lost in thought, wondering which celestial being was his. I wondered who else on earth was gazing upward, feeling the loss as I was feeling. Then, a sudden flicker started to make its way through the dormant light sources. It kept flickering. And then another thought entered my mind. I imagined that the erratic illumination was the flicker of a film projector, and that John was giving a presentation. He was showing the boys in Battle of the Century his Redux edition of the Superman episode, Panic in the Sky. And because I was watching from the Earth, he screamed Hats Off, the long-lost Laurel and Hardy two-reel comedy. And then I could hear him laugh and tell me, it's terrific. You should see it. Someday when it's my turn, I hope we can see it together. And so, together, we must all reluctantly turn the page. However, we don't have to close the book. For as long as we remember him, as long as the beautiful gifts he shared with us continue to be enjoyed, nurtured, and shared, we can return to his teachings. We can learn from them. We can love through them. we will always keep them safe and warm. So, for our friend John, who is enjoying a healthy existence in the company of his dear friend Noel Neal, we can celebrate that he is out of pain, that he is happy and in eternal peace. And may we all celebrate that for a part of our lives. He brought such joy into ours and ours into his. And in doing so, he made our lives all the better for